Hi everyone, Vade here, and today I'm going to be talking about CS50. Now you'd expect me to be very positive and say, hey, this is the best value course, CS course that you would have ever seen. You know, Professor Malin's teaching, his pedagogy is excellent. This is the best way to really show your interest in computer science without paying a dime. That's all very, very true. But my experience with this course is very unique because, first of all, I'm not a Harvard student, nor am I really a student of this edX course. But of course, I've heard so much about this course. And so it all started October 23rd of last year, and it was about like a week or two before I was going to Boston just to for fun, for tourism's sake, and I saw somewhere someone sent me this thing where Harvard CS50 was making their lectures open to the public. You had to pay like $10 to go into Memorial Hall, into Sanders Theater, as you see in this image. And so I was like, yeah, this is, like, I've heard about this course. Like, I've seen, like, I saw, like, Lecture 0 in, like, 2021. Like, I saw, like, the first, like, 45 minutes of it, and it was just really cool, like, the light bulbs and all of and the binary and the bits and all that stuff. So I was like, that would be so cool. And it's also, like, I get to actually see Harvard because I'd never seen Harvard before. And so I went there, and when I first came into the campus, I came like 3 or 4 hours before the actual lecture, and I was just strolling around Harvard Square, and so I went into I was in the Harvard bookstore, kind of just looking around, and then the bookstore, I think it was the owner or a worker, made an announcement that there was an active shooter near Harvard Square, and we immediately, he gave us the option, hey, you can go outside, but you can go outside only now if you don't want to stay in here, but in a minute we're going to be locking down and everyone has to go to the basement. And it was my first time visiting Harvard. It was my first time visiting Boston, and to have that so unexpectedly, it was very stressful, and I didn't know what would happen. This is a new area for me, and I went by myself. I went completely by myself. No one came with me. I just went all by myself, and so it was a very stressful moment. And I immediately knew, like, I don't know if I can even stick around for the lecture. I'm just gonna get out of Boston as soon as I get out of there. I'm just very stressed out. So we were in there for about like 45 minutes to an hour until we were free to go. And the moment I walked out of there was like helicopters all over the place, police cars, and it was just crazy. And I was like, I was about to head to the airport because I wanted to go back. I was just shocked. But then I heard that, like, I didn't even know if the lecture would still be on. And so I was just thinking to myself, like, why don't I go just check it out? There are tons of students out there anyway. Like, it was horrifying because I was walking, like there were so many people in Harvard Yard. I was like, when I first went to Harvard, like, it was like 20 minutes before this report came in. Like, we were just everyone, there was like hundreds of people walking on Harvard Yard, and we were just all like having fun, and everyone was taking pictures in front of the John Harvard statue. And then I just went to the bookstore to check things out, and then I that's when we had to be locked in there. And it's just crazy to think that luckily it was not directly in Harvard Square, but it was adjacent to Harvard Square, and so if it were to have been if it were to have happened at Harvard Yard or Harvard Square, I could have died. Um, and so it's scary to think about. And so anyway, I got out. I was about to head to the airport because I just did not feel safe. But I I wanted to give, like, I just wanted to check if this lecture was still going on, because I there are so many people out there. Like, it was really unclear because so many students were just proceeding as normal. So I was really scared. But I went over to Memorial Hall, Sanders Theater, and I went inside, and I was greeted by some very lovely volunteers of CS50, and then a few minutes later, because I was a little early actually, it was like 1 hour before the lecture. I was there with a few people, and then Professor comes in, and I didn't even notice until he just bumped into me. He was like, "Hey," and he wanted to shake my hand, and I can't even begin to describe how 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 heartwarming that was. It was it was just so welcoming. He was, you'd think he'd just never come out and speak to the people who are watching or attending the lecture. You'd think he'd just be on stage preparing. He would not even bother to come out, but he just offered to shake my hand, and he was asking us, why are you here? It's your first time, and it was the most welcoming feeling that I've had in a long time. And this too from the world's most famous professor of computer science. It was just really something I didn't expect. And so we had the lecture, and this is me. We were sitting in. They were playing some banger overwork music, and I was just smiling. Like, I was just like, it felt so welcome. I felt so, like, it felt so cool. And this was like not too long after my life was at risk. And now I'm here. I'm in probably the coolest theater in the world, and by the coolest professor, and who just shook my hand, and he welcomed me as if I was, I can't even, I've just never felt so welcome in such a place, let alone an academic institution. I mean, it didn't even feel like that. It just felt like an incredibly kind person welcoming me into their home, like a stranger, an incredibly kind stranger welcoming me into their home. That's how it felt. And I was given this rubber duck, and if those who are not familiar with the course, you may be familiar with the saying that if you're stuck debugging something, it's best to talk to a rubber duck. A rubber duck can help you figure it out. And so that's kind of you can look more into it, but they gave us this duck. I don't know, the green screen is kind of messing it up, but yellow rubber duck. Let's see, can I cover it? Yeah, CS50, it says right there. And so I was given this, and oh my god, and then the lecture, it was the artificial intelligence lecture, and it was just, the best explanation of AI that I have ever seen for a layman. Again, I'm not a layman by any means, but even even my even the eldest of my relatives could probably understand what he was talking about. It was phenomenal. And just to see that level of pedagogy and to just see how welcoming this environment was, especially after such a traumatic event, is just phenomenal. And so I wrote this post on LinkedIn while I was in the taxi right out of this, right after this lecture. I had to rush to the airport because my flight was in like an hour. Of course, this was my first time in Boston, and of course now I've been to Boston 8 times. It's my first time. I've been to Boston 8 times. I underestimate the airport is in East Boston, but it's right next to the airport. Is really close. You just take the T, or you can, I just took an Uber because I didn't, I'm from Chicago, and I'm from the Chicago area, and the city, O'Hare Airport is very far away from the city, and so I thought, Boston. This was my first time there. Of course, now I've been there so many times, and I always take the T or the Silver Line to the airport. But so while I was in the taxi, I was literally typing this on my phone. I wrote this in my phone. I literally right after the lecture I wrote it, because I was just so engaged. I was just so attached to this course, and I knew I had to come again. I had to come again because this was incredibly impactful for me, because he was so welcoming and so kind, Professor Malin. And so after the lecture, also, I asked him if I could take a picture with him. I asked him if I could take a picture of him, and he was like smiling. He was like, "Of course." He is just such an incredible guy. I never expected this. And I'm not saying this because, it's such a big relief after a traumatic event. But even regardless of that, I just have never felt more welcome. I've never felt more welcome. And so I kind of want to talk about, subsequently, I after this, I decided that I wanted to come back for another lecture, and I actually came back less than a month, and it was on my birthday as well. And by the way, yeah, this is the one. This is another picture. This is this picture on the left is when I visited for another CS50 lecture. It was the last ever lecture of the year, and it was on my birthday. And I planned a trip to Boston, and on my way to Boston on my birthday, I got some pretty devastating news as well. And I'm not going to go into detail. I'm not going to explain it because it's a very personal situation. But I just felt like I just wanted to go back home after hearing that information. But I still went, because I knew that this lecture would make up for it. This environment, this atmosphere that Professor and all the people in the CS50 team created would turn my frown or turn my sadness into a big smile, and it for sure did. I went to the lecture. Phenomenal lecture. They gave me these sunglasses because I told them I came to one already. Here, let me try to cover this so you can see. It's a CS50 on it. Kind of see that. And I chose these glasses. They had 3 options. I think it was a pen, a sticker, and then this. I'm not 100% sure. But I was just really sad. I was so stressed out during before I was waiting in Memorial Hall. Professor was there. The lecture started. It was a phenomenal lecture, and then after the lecture, and this is, by the way, these are some pictures of me with a new friend I met actually at the lecture, Aditya, and this was taken by the official CS50 photographer. This is what they took, and we found these photos, and this was me. I was smiling. After the lecture, I had a smile that would not go away. It just like lit. I was smiling, like I was. It was like I couldn't even stop. I was just smiling. I was always I just couldn't stop smiling because of how great it is. It was a safe haven for me. It was incredible. I've never felt anything like it. And that too was also another time when I was very distraught. And then I was telling Professor, like, hey, I caught him after the lecture, and I was like, hey, it's my birthday, Professor. He was like, happy birthday. He was like very happy, and then we took this photo on the left here, and I was smiling, and then like as I was walking out of Harvard, I was just smiling. I was only smiling. I couldn't even stop smiling because of how happy I was. This guy is just incredible. Something about his pedagogy and something about his personality is just so magical, because I've never felt more welcome. I've never felt more happy in such a setting. It was just incredible, man. I've never felt more happy in such a place. And again, I'm speaking very honestly. I'm not overreacting here, and this is just genuinely how I feel about CS50, and the content in the atmosphere is something that it's just it's like the perfect course. I've never seen anything like that. Like, that's why I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to go there and to meet and to witness such a remarkable thing. I'm just in awe today. Like, CS50 is just so welcoming. I've never felt more welcome. And it's true even in edX. Anyone can sign up for it as long as they're online. You can get a free certificate. I mean, it really is a stark contrast between the exclusivity of the Ivy League and the inclusivity that CS50 provides. It's something magical as well, because I know it's very rare to actually, not a lot of people get the opportunity to go and actually see him perform live, or to see him, it's a performance. It is a performance. It's just phenomenal. And so when I flew back home, and I'm being completely honest here, I'm telling you, I'm not overreacting. I actually started to cry. I was weeping because I had never ever had a teacher. I've never ever had a teacher or an educator provide such an atmosphere like what he did. I was so frustrated. I was so frustrated that I would not be able to see this every time. He really set the bar for what's possible in education, and what's possible to make learning more enjoyable. And there was not a second where I was not engaged in the lecture. There wasn't a second where I was not engaged. And it's all thanks to him and his team, the people at CS50. They also are really good at recommending restaurants too. CS50 would have their lunches at a restaurant called Chang Show in Cambridge. It's near Porter Square, and I went there, and the Chinese food there was incredible. Go to Chang Show if you're in Boston, Cambridge area. I mean, it's great. It's phenomenal. I've never ever had an educational experience quite like this. And everything that he's done is well deserved. Well deserved. I highly recommend that if you are ever upset, or if you're sad, or if you feel like you don't belong, or things are not going your way, and you just want to learn something new, or you want to just see, if you want to just be welcomed into such a vibrant environment, consider going to a CS50 lecture. Consider going to a CS50 lecture. That's how I felt, and that's how I still feel. Thank you for watching, guys.